Verse 25. Putting away lying, or divorcing yourself from lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor. For we are members one of another. Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Give what? Neither give place to the devil. Be wise, because the devil has his tricks. Don't give place to him. Don't do things that's going to give place to the devil. Sometimes you have to control yourself. Be angry, but don't sin. Learn to control yourself. Let him that stole steal no more, but rather let him labor, working with his hands the thing which is good, that he may give to him that needeth. Of course, the spirit of giving in a marriage is very important. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. Don't be cutting one another down, tearing one another down, making little digs here or there. That passive-aggressive little dig one another creates the spirit of contempt. Once the spirit of contempt is firmly entrenched between a husband and a wife, social scientists tell us now that it is generally less than 5 years before the marriage ends. If you are living in contempt for the one that you have committed to love, you are destined to be divorced statistically within 5 years. Some people are glutton for punishment. They can make that last for 10, 20 years. But if you let contempt rise up in your heart, you know that it's going to bring sin into your life. You know it's going to bring sin. You've got to recognize the signals and look at the signs and say, hey, I've got this feeling in my heart. I feel contempt for this one I'm supposed to love. How do I fix this? And the longer you wait, the worse it gets. You want to fix it quicker rather than let it fester. If you let an infection get worse, you get a splinter in your hand. If you don't get that splinter out soon, it's gonna get sore. You ever try to pull a splinter out after 4 days and it's all red and pussy? You're talking about painful. That's painful. And if you just leave it in there hoping it's just going to go away, it's just going to get worse. It's going to be a long time before it gets better, if at all, and that splinter maybe works its way out. The spirit of contempt that people adopt toward the person they're committed to love, if you don't pull that splinter out right away, that's why I said don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Don't let it go too long before you forgive. And there's always a lot of forgiving got to be done in a marriage, especially at first 10 years. At first 10 years, you got to really learn to forgive a lot and let things go. But don't let it fester, because if you don't deal with it on a regular basis as it comes, you're gonna really feel that spirit of contempt rising up, and before you know it, you're making little snide remarks. And quite frankly, what's going to happen to your love life? In marriage, you're going to start to see a massive slowdown. Because I don't feel like it. I'm too tired. But the truth is, some hurt feelings, some contempt. Women, you got to recognize it. Men, you got to recognize when you feel contempt and or you have created contempt. Let no communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good, to the use of edifying, to build up, not just tearing down. And if you feel that the world is hard, and listen, men, this happens a lot. Now it happens to women too, because a lot of women are in the workplace. All day you put up with garbage, and people are feeding you sandwiches full of bologna. And you're having to swallow a lot from other people. And you put up with it because the boss is a jerk, or because this person here has got leverage, or you're really having trouble and you're doing your best to be kind and gracious. If you go home and then take it out on your wife or your husband because, well, they're there and they're easy, you're sinning. You're sinning against God. Because you're taking your frustrations out on somebody who doesn't deserve it. You really feel nasty toward this person who's been, digging at you all day. And now that you're home and you're free and you're comfortable in a loving environment, you feel free to take it out on that loved one. Take it out on the kids. You got to learn some techniques, and there are techniques. It's normal to feel that. It's normal for everybody to go home with that. But you got to learn some techniques to not misdirect your negative feelings. Because you're going to be tearing down the ones you love, and they don't deserve it. I knew of a policeman who for years would go to work and he'd see terrible things during the 70s and 80s here in New York City policemen. and 60s, 70s, and 80s. And he would go home and he'd beat his wife and take it out on the kids. He'd get really drunk on the weekend, stayed drunk all weekend. He was a high-ranking officer. But he would see things he couldn't do anything about, and because he didn't channel it through prayer, he didn't talk to the Lord about it, he dealt with it by covering it up with alcoholism, and then he would go home and he would take it out on the kids. And he would drink so much and gamble, and there was no money left for the kids at birthdays and holidays. The pain and the suffering created insecurities and damage that the young people grew up and carried into their adulthood. Because of this man's sin, because he didn't learn to channel it to God. He didn't learn to talk to God and find relief for his soul. God's grace this last week was kind of hard. We had a great tragedy, and my son and I were doing some stuff. And if it wasn't for God and the proper respect that God has given me and understanding of life and death and bodies and blood, it was tough. My father, my brother-in-law, myself, and even my son Seth had to clean my brother-in-law, the one that didn't make it. We had to clean him up out of the carpet, which meant we had to cut the carpet up, had to take a shovel and shovel what was left of him up off of the subfloor. Pretty gross. Who was going to do it? We had to protect the girls from it. We had to protect the children from it. Somebody had to do it. We had to get a floor laid over him. He's a permanent part of the house now. The rest of him is ashes. They're part of him that will always be with that house. But we bleached most of them. So how do I deal with this? Do I take it out? Do I get frustrated? No, you got to learn to talk to God about it and to deal with things in a proper way and to know what is life and what is death and what are bodies and what is not. If you have a good relationship with God and a good hold on theology, you'll be surprised at how much you can handle without it affecting you in the negative way. You know, the most difficult thing that's affected me had nothing to do with the blood and the guts and the garbage or the sore knees from laying on the floor this week. You know what the thing that affected me the most was? Is this guy. This guy says, you know what, God? I would rather die than let you have a chance in my life. I will not submit to you, but I'll show you I'm the boss all the way to the end. Well, he found out who was the boss last Friday. And it wasn't him. I know he's out with that mean streak to try and hurt the people around him and hurt the people he loves. But you know what? In the end, 20, 30 years from now, he'll be nothing more than a faded memory and a spot on the subfloor underneath a new wood floor in some house that strangers own. It'll be a distant memory. Some are already putting them in the rearview mirror. But it bothers me the most. I can still hear his voice in my head. And that guy, I would rather die than let you have a chance in my life. I will not live for you. I'd rather die. That's what bothered me. That's what broke my heart the most. I won't surrender to you. I won't do things your way. Because I'm going to be the boss and I'm going to do things my way. All the way to the end. You may have gotten the last word. Others will have the last laugh. But it breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart because things could have been different. Things could have been different. Grieve not the Holy Spirit of God, Christians, whereby ye are sealed unto the day of redemption. Always keep an eye on God and please God. And if you please God, your wife and your husband will often be very happy with you. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away. Let those things be divorced from you. If you let that stuff be divorced from you, you'll be married. You'll stay married. With all malice. Put away that contemptuous spirit. And what does it say as a positive say? It says, no, don't only divorce yourself from these nasty things. It says what? And be ye kind one to another. How many times have I been upset and the Holy Spirit has brought this verse to my mind? That's what the difference that Christianity makes. Christianity helped my marriage. I know it'll help yours. It'll help any relationship you're in. When you learn to do this, and be ye kind one to another. Tender-hearted, which isn't natural. forgiving one another. Why? Even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. When you feel like you can't forgive, you remember how much God has forgiven you, and you'll find the strength and the grace and the mercy to let some things go. So bow our heads, close our eyes, with no one looking around. It may be this morning